As Mount Everest, the highest elevation. So here's, I'm just trying, and the elevation here is 29,028 feet above sea level. So let's make this sea level. And then the Dead Sea, the lowest elevation is, and again, let's just create it over here. And this low point is 1,312, but let's write it in this manner so that we can say it's below sea level. So we're asking for the distance. So think about what we want. We want the distance. So if you were to, I guess if that was a straight line and you were to go from the bottom of Dead Sea to the top of Mount Everest, what would that distance be? So this one is not tricky, but in the way you write it, you might want to write it like this. So if you think about it, you want to cover this distance, right? From the bottom of the Dead Sea to 0, and then you also want to walk from 0 to the top of Mount Everest. So there's two distances that we're supposed to add here. So we're talking about distance. This should come to mind. So we want that distance, right? Plus the other distance, which is 29,028. So the absolute value of negative 1,312 is just that, 1312. And the absolute value, of course, of 29,028 is just that. So this one, that's what I would like to see, and you can add it up and get whatever answer you get. Okay. 2, in Buffalo, New York, the temperature was negative 14. So it's negative 14 in the morning. So let's start writing that. So negative 14, right now it's negative 14. The temperature dropped 7 degrees. So if you think about it, if it dropped, which way are we going on the number line? Are we going left or right? And obviously, if it's getting colder, we're going to go left. And how do we represent that drop? We represent that drop with negative 7. So that's the number sentence that I'm looking for, right? And then you can obviously figure it out that the temperature is negative 21. So this is what I want you to start with. Number 3, a submarine was situated at 800 feet below sea level. So again, below sea level means he's here. That's how we're going to describe his current position. And he's going to ascend. Ascend means to go up. You put plus side. So what are we going to add to the negative 800 feet? Well, if it's ascending, we're going to add to that. And it's going to be a positive integer. So we're going to write 250. So if this is the water and he's right here right now, and here's a submarine, if he ascends 250, his new location, right, his new position, it's going to be closer to 0, which is the surface of the water, and whatever that is, what is that, 550? So he's still underwater, but he's still definitely much closer to the surface. Okay. So again, this is what I'm looking for. 3, the Sahara Desert one day was 136 Fahrenheit, which is pretty hot. In the Gobi Desert, the temperature of 50 degrees were recorded. What is the difference between these two temperatures? So again, think about, let me draw a thermometer, and here's 136. Right, in the Sahara Desert was, let me write 50, negative 50, was it negative 50? Yeah, negative 50. So again, what's the difference between these two? And again, that difference can be the sum of these two values, right? You have the value of this, of this part, I'll call that A, and the absolute value of this. So we can go with the absolute value of 50 with the absolute value of 136. That's 50 plus 136. So the difference between the two temperatures is 186. 186 difference between negative 50 and 136. 4, your checking account's overdrawn. Overdrawn is something that you don't want to experience, which means you spend more than you had. So you're currently at negative 50. And you write a check for $20, which means you're still spending money. So to that, what are we adding? We're adding a negative integer because we're going left on the number line, right? So what is the balance in your account? Obviously, you're definitely in a worse situation. So we're even further down, and that's negative 7. 6, roller coaster begins at 90 feet above ground, so that's described as positive 90. Okay, it descends 105 feet. Descends means to go down. So to that, we're going to add what? A negative integer or a positive integer? We're adding a negative integer. Right? So what is, find the height of the roller coaster after the first descent. So the you're right, here on the roller coaster, right? Imagine that. Let me make that 0, and that's 90 feet up. And then it goes down 105. So at the bottom here, how far down did you go? What's the height of the coaster after the first descent? So we want to try it. So if you go down in that drop here of 105 feet, where are you at the bottom? So you'll be at negative 15. 7. Steve has overdrawn again. Overdrawn. Negative 27. His bank charged him 15 for the overdraft fee. So the banks, every time you spend more than you have, and you don't, I guess if you don't have authorization from the bank, they're gonna charge you a service fee, right? Because they helped you. So the charge is $15, and again, that goes against you, right? So if they're charging you, that's something you're gonna have to pay back. So that's negative 15. Then he quickly deposited 100. So if he deposited 100, that's we're moving to the right on the number line, so we're adding 100 to the bank account. So what does he have right now? So negative 27 and negative 15 is negative 42. And then we add 100 to that, right? So we're going to move right. So from negative 42, we move to the right of the number line, and we know the absolute value of 100 is definitely greater than the absolute value of negative 42. So we're going to go past 0 and then all the way to 58. On the first play, a football team lost 6 yards, so lost negative 6. On the second play, the team lost another 5, so we're going to that. The team is going backwards, so negative 5. What was their total change in yards? So negative 11, right? 9, the price of a share stock started at $37. Okay, so you bought something, a piece of a company for $37. The next day went down 3. So went down 3 means we go left on the number line, so we use a negative integer, and then up 1, which means we go up, or sorry, to the right on the number line. And then on the following day, we go down 7. So that means we go to the left of the number line. And up 4, and then finally 4. What is the total price of the stock at the end of the day? So definitely your stock moved up and down. So 37 and negative 3 is 34. And 34 plus 1, and I'm running out of room. So 34 plus 1 is 35. 35 plus negative 7, right, is 28. And 28 plus 4 is finally 32. Okay, so hopefully you did it in a neater way than that. 10, an elevator went up 15 floors. So 15 floors, 15 positive, right, going up. Down 9 floors, so how do we represent going down 9 floors? We're adding to that negative 9. Where am I? Up 11, so we use positive integer. And down 19 again, so we're going to use a negative integer. Find the net change. So what was the net change? So again, 15 plus negative 9 is 6. And then I'm actually going to do this in steps. 6 and 11 is 17. And then 17 plus negative 19, you're negative 2, which means you're 2 floors underground. The average temperature at South Pole is negative 45. Okay, I write that down. The average temperature on the equator is, okay, sorry. On the, make a thermometer going this way. So this is the South Pole, and the equator is 92 degrees. Right, E for equator. How much warmer is the average temperature on the equator than the South Pole? So how much warmer would be this distance right here, right? So we can write it as that, plus absolute value of 92. So 45 plus 92 equals 137. So it's 137 degrees warmer in the equator than in the South Pole. 12. Felix reported the coldest day on record on his town was 5 times colder than yesterday's temperature. So negative 4. What was the temperature on the cold day? So 5 times. So 5 times negative 4. So what is 5? What is multiplication? Isn't multiplication repeated addition? So we can go negative 4. We can change that problem and write it this way. You don't have to, but I'm just showing that you can. Right? And this you can do, -4. So again, we're going further and further to the left of the number line. How far to the number line? Left of the number line we're going? All the way to -20. And if you also knew that a positive times a negative is a negative, then you could have done that straight away. Pythagoras was born in 582 BC, before Christ. And Newton was born in 1643 AD. So let me, our timeline here. So 582 BC would be somewhere over here. All right, let me just write that if you want. And then 1643 was Newton. AD. So how many years apart were they born? So again, we want this distance, right? That measurement. So we can go absolute value of 582 plus the absolute value of 1643. And it's just simply, obviously, 582 plus 1643. And you can figure it out. The freezing point of water is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. The team added potassium and found out that the freezing point went down by 8. So 32 degrees. If it goes down by 8, we're going to move left on the number line, so we're going to write that as -8. What was the freezing point of water with the added potassium? So if you have 32 and you go left -8, right, you're going to get to 24. 24 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a freezing point of water with potassium. Last three, the local movie theater reported losses of $475 every day. So a loss is represented like that, negative integer, for 3 days. What was the loss for those 3 days? So again, you can multiply that by 3, or you can represent it like that. Because we haven't, all right, let me put a plus sign there. All right, so your losses are piling up every day, so you're going further and further left of the number line. Okay, and you're losing more and more money, and you guys can figure out the answer. The city's budget is $8 million. Okay, so you have $8 million to spend. It's a nice amount. The city actually spends $12 million. What was the city deficit? So you had $8 million, you spent $12 million, so $12 million represented like that. So how much are you in deficit? Oh, obviously a lot. Okay. The elevation of Mount Everest, is that the same thing as the first question? No, it's not. So let me see. Again, we have Mount Everest, and that's 29,028, right? The peak here. The elevation of the Dead Sea is -485. Okay, so the Dead Sea, bottom part here is -485 feet. We just make that a 0 over here. So what is the distance? What's the difference in elevation between Mount Everest? So what's the difference between the top and the bottom? So, right, what's the difference between the bottom and the top? And again, it's this distance here and this distance here. So you take the absolute value of each. $485 plus 29,028, and the sum will be the difference between the two heights. Okay. All right, pretty straightforward. Okay, so it's just a matter of understanding how to write that number sentence, right? If you're decreasing in value, you want to use a negative integer, and increasing, you want to use a positive integer. Okay.